Let's look at some classic Xenon bow footage. I have no idea what video I'm showing at the time of recording, but as you can see, it used to destroy everything in front of you. The projectile was so massive that it would hit enemies that were sometimes behind you. I don't know if I have footage of that, but you can believe me when I say it's incredible. Everybody who's been using the Xenon bow, which means every single Save the World player for the last 3 years at least, has noticed that the Xenon bow does way more than it should. And that's because, thanks to this graphic by Tomatech, you can see that this is the approximate projectile size of the classic Xenon bow, and due to a recent update, they tweaked it so that it is now the normal size of what a projectile should be. This is for every bow in the game, by the way. The boom bow, vacuum tube bow, everything you use, this is the projectile size for every bow in the game. And this is what the Xenon bow used to be, which has created a situation where we still have the same classic weapon. It's got all the same stats. It does everything it normally did, except that it doesn't exactly hit everything in front of you anymore. I mean, in the past, you used to be able to go through an entire encampment in like 2 or 3 shots. Now you really need to line them up. You could see from footage later in this video, it is pretty brutal. And something I've been saying for years in all of my bow tier lists, every time it comes up, the Xenon bow, at the time that I did a bunch of math, there were 12 bows in the game. Xenon bow was like number 8 on that list. Since then, we've gotten the stink bow and the flame bow, and I'm pretty sure they're both stronger base damage. So I'm not double checking these numbers, but suffice it to say the Xenon bow is in the bottom third, maybe bottom 25% base damage bows in the game. That never mattered to the greater community because it could hit so many targets in front of you all at once that it was just fine. People used it for everything, and Epic took notice. I think they realized that this was essentially the only weapon players used on average, and they decided that was a little too OP. I think the current projectile might be a little too small, but I really wanted to hop in game and check this out. Now, full disclosure, this update happened weeks prior to recording. I was literally in Florida when it happened, so I wasn't really in a good space to make a video on that. Then by the time I got home, I was super duper busy, so I know I'm multiple weeks late to actually showcasing this change, but we're here, we're doing it. We're gonna be running 2 different copies, reload, crit rating, fire rate, this is like pretty standard right here, and then double crit damage just because I wanted to see if that super low damage could be mitigated somehow. I am using Rabbit Raider Jones in the lead. I have been saying for a long time, I think he is the preferred commander. Lots of people like to run Stoneheart Farah just because of her commander perk where she branches off and does damage to multiple targets. I think based on the projectile size that I just showed you from the past, hitting multiple targets was not a weak point for the Xenon bow. It was definitely the damage from the weapon, which is why I still think Rabbit Raider is better in the lead, because while it is fair to say that hitting more enemies with Stoneheart Farah could be a good counterbalance to the newly reduced projectile size, I think she's a perfectly fine commander. I just prefer Rabbit Raider, so that's what we're going to be running. Also, there's a current bug in the game where Ninja's double jump just kind of doesn't work all the time, and I'm looking to avoid that. Happy to avoid that right now. Totally rocking out, Battle Beat, Fumble, these are all very, very standard. I think I was being lazy with the Vacuum Tube bow the last time I played. I am absolutely going to be preferring Subwoofers, especially with a double crit damage copy that I want to test out. Stoneheart Farah, if she's not in the lead, should definitely be in support. Same with Rabbit Raider, he should always be in support. If you guys want my bow loadouts video, link to that down below. Quickscope is really standard. Ramirez is just great. And what might not have been noted in my bow video is that I am addicted to Eternal Wanderer. I can't not use her. That double stamina is so nice. Every time she's not in my build, I miss her. If you just want damage, Rex Jonesy's fine, Locked and Reloaded is fine, all the stuff I mentioned in that video is fine, but the movement is so great, I don't want to go without it. And that's it. I think Teammater 2 might be running Boom Base, so we might be getting a little bit of extra help, but that's all I can do for preamble. Let's hop in game and check out the newly nerfed Xenon bow. All right, my first glowing animal. So in the past, that would have killed right there. I intentionally missed. Now you need to be dead on. And something I want to mention before we get into more combat is that the usability for breaking like quest items and stuff should still be pretty good. That's an ancient thing where if you punch with the Outlander anti-material charge ability, that will pop off all of the teddy bears or server racks or whatever in a nearby area. And that'll be really, really good for finishing quests. As far as I'm aware, the Xenon bow is still pretty good for that. And look at that, dude. That shot hit nothing. That is not something that was possible before. You really do need to line them up exactly. And that's a common discussion point that comes up. In fact, somebody in my stream as of recording made the same point. that if you're struggling with the Xenon bow, it's mostly a skill issue. And that was actually something I was saying from my Florida hotel room when I hadn't even tried the weapon out. But now that I've used it, I can see that it's kind of both. Yes, you definitely need to practice your aim and be more accurate. Look at this, if you miss one shot. But enemies don't always line up exactly. You can see that the enemy on the right stays alive when I'm shooting at the wolf, and vice versa. So it's partially skill issue, like you do need to be accurate. But it's also incredibly fair to say that the Xenon bow is just not hitting as many targets as it used to. As I mentioned in the intro of this video, the Xenon bow used to clear an encampment in like 3 or 4 shots in the previous update. And I know I'm being really bad at the game right now. It's been a while since I played, but you can see that a lot of enemies were left alive that would have been killed before the nerf. Just to run that back so I hopefully don't die again, you can see like you still need to target the big enemies, but the enemies that are standing right in front of me are not necessarily getting hit by the projectile. It's going right through their feet. You absolutely need to be dead accurate. And thank you for the decoy help, Zaku. You can see Startart Farah is doing a lot. She is helping a lot with the missed shots, but the Zapper dudes shooting me from range, they are not just a given. Previously, the projectile would have killed them regardless, but now you need to actually try a little bit. Now, this encampment was a little helpful for the Xenon bow because everybody was going through a 2 or 3 tile wide choke point, which grouped them up pretty naturally, but that's not always the case. In a more wide open environment, you could see that when enemies are not walking through a natural choke point, it's just not a given. The enemies that are right in front of you are really important. It's like old school ingrained in my brain to aim at the targets that are far away and have the most health. But I can't really do that because with the Xenon bow of all weapons, the enemies that are directly in front of me are a major problem. And if you don't shoot with deadly precision, you will die. The enemy that is right in front of me, I can't even hit because of, I'm gonna say it, skill issue. I am playing really poorly, but like that's how unhelpful the weapon is now. You can't just play it on easy mode and expect it to do everything. That lobber, both of those girls would have been dead in the previous update, and you need to actually try. You need to aim for the head, use your precision, you know, stunned it back, so I'm just letting the ramp block his damage while the affliction takes care of it. But that's my point. That's what I'm saying. Shooting between those targets would have been a guaranteed kill. But a guaranteed kill. You can't even hit them now. That needs to be dead on or they just won't die, which is kind of a common complaint because not only is, okay, now you need to actually try. That's nice. It gives people encouragement to get better at the game. I do like skill-based performance. You know, it's cool when the game isn't free, but it is well known. I've shown this in the vacuum tube bow videos, and the vacuum tube bow is awesome, and next season is water only, so I'm going to be running vacuum tube bow in a future video, I'm sure. A lot of times that projectile goes straight through their head. So even if you are deadly accurate, projectiles on bows are pretty bugged, and they don't always guarantee the kill. So it's a weird change. It's a weird change. I like making the Xenon bow require some level of thought. That's a fun change, but the projectile is so tiny and so buggy that I'm not even sure I know how to feel. Currently almost missing that double jump, but you know, we get around. So I asked my team to leave some of these builds incomplete so I can put down some of the traps. That's not so I can steal combat and leech. It's really just because I want to actually get Battle Beat active and I appreciate them. And he's asking me to upgrade builds because he's out of metal because you can't drop items and save the world anymore. It is not a bug. It is not a mistake. Epic does not want that to be happening. So kind of a major change in the modern day there on top of the Xenon bow nerf. But yeah, and I'm calling it a nerf. It's not a bug fix. The Xenon bow was not bugged. In fact, it was explicitly written into the code. Thank you again, Tomotech, for all the information you provided in our Discord. It was explicitly written. It had its own line of code that made the projectile huge. Maybe he can comment down below and I can pin it if you guys want to be nerdy and read more, but it was specifically coded to have a gigantic projectile, and now it's just not like that anymore. So yeah, pretty basic traps here because it looks like we have some natural funneling, which is going to help a lot for the newly nerfed weapon, and I think this should be good. I don't want to overtrap because I can't just get free stuff from Ty anymore. She was my sugar mama, and now I have to actually farm for my own materials, which is honestly cool. I don't mind farming, but yeah, this should be good, and I think we can start the mission.
There's not much to comment on the size change other than what you already brought up at the start of the video.
Yeah, well, I was curious if you wanted to like write the actual code. There's a screenshot of it in Discord, so yeah.
If you can picture the size of a wall, that's about like 1024 in-game units. it went from a radius of 64 units to a radius of 2 units.
So I showed your image, but what I was noting specifically was that it had its own line of code. Like, it wasn't a bug.
Yes.
They intentionally made it huge. Oh, and not to cut Homotech off here,
tagged
but
them-
this is exactly what I mean by the Xenon bow being weak. I know that Yekrab is running the Dirge Song build. Link to that down below if you guys want to absolutely shred. That build is not broken. It is as good as it ever was. But without his help, you can see the upper limit of my damage is 1.7 million, it looks, on a crit, which is enough to one-shot a blasty phase. That's actually pretty good. These guys will go down. 1.9 million was more than I expected from the Xenon bow, but versus a smasher in the 250 power level zone here is, I think, 4.8 million health. So you're going to need to crit on that headshot 3 times in a row to kill a smasher, which is really lucky and can happen. But what we're seeing now is tricky, because I want to make the claim that the Xenon bow is nerfed and it's kind of bad now, which is true, but you can see in the right land layout, we have a double choke point defense, which is crazy. I did not plan that for this video, but it does show a real life, use case where sometimes everything just works out, but this is not working out. I know I'm not eating a wafer, Battle Beat just kicked in, but like, this is how weak the Xenon bow is and always was. Without that insane AoE, its single target damage was always lacking. It hurt my soul to watch teammates and people in Discord using Xenon bows versus mini bosses. It was never a mini boss killer. It might be good at doing what I'm showing now, killing lots of enemies all at once, and Stoneheart Farah is carrying a lot of weight right now. But yeah, like I said in the intro, I didn't favor her as a commander before the nerf. Now, maybe she's a better commander in comparison. But you can see, this is actually why I brought the Jabberwocky, because if we need to take down a big target, some big game hunting, that is the right weapon to use. Jabberwocky's very strong. Link to a video on that down below. But Tomato, did you have something else to add before I started ranting about damage?
If I did, I've forgotten about it already.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to take advantage of the smasher that was in front of my face. That's what we get with a live comm. But what I was saying is there was specific code written for that. And do you know how it was written exactly? Can you remember that off your memory?
Yeah, it literally... So, bow projectiles are sort of like... I don't know if you've seen, like, indie games that always use these, like, pill shapes for their, like, player models. Or,
No?
like, to start out with. But they have these, like, sort of capsule shapes that look like pills. You can... And the games use them a lot for, like, basic, like, hitboxes. And so you're able to define, like, the length of an arrow as well as its radius. Both of them were set to 64, like, explicitly. They're written down as saying, like, having a radius 64, height of 64. So it was very much when they were programming the Xenon bow originally, they wanted it to have that big of a... Well, maybe not that big, but they wanted to have a much bigger hitbox than other bows did.
And I wonder if they noticed the performance we're seeing today and they thought, oh, this is kind of weak. Nobody's really going to like that. And they decided to make it bigger, but settled on a size that was enormous. The common thing I mentioned earlier in the video that we all like to point out is it could hit an enemy that was behind you. Like, for a split second on launch of your projectile, it was so large it could reach behind you. That's absurd. You wouldn't even be looking at an enemy, and it would hit them for a split second if they were directly behind you. So this might be a case where they've nerfed the weapon back to an intended state, while also maybe overdoing it. And I don't know how I feel, because the performance I'm seeing right now is pretty darn good. I know I have teammates helping and a lot of choke points, and honestly, this map is doing a lot for the Xenon bow. If we were in a Cat 4 with everything spread out, I'd probably be singing a very different tune right now, but alright, he just fell through the map. Well, off the side of the map. But I don't know. I kind of like it. I think maybe they overtuned it intentionally, because as we know, Xenon bow, we have 4-day DV. We have the yearly stats. We know that the Xenon bow is far and away the most used weapon. Every time I raid someone on Twitch, it's like the only weapon I see in the primary slot. I am included in this, by the way, for Ventures. It's like the one weapon we all look for. It's just the best of what it does. And I still do that, actually. The Xenon bow is a weapon that scarcely needs perks, and on that front, actually, I can pull out the double crit damage copy. And, I did run out of smashers to kill, so maybe this is bad timing, but you could see double crit damage if you really wanted to force this into a damage-dealing weapon. Oh, man, I keep seeing the reload count go up to 1 and then losing my window, but it is there. Now, the boss should be spawning very soon. They always spawn at the Wave 10 file, so that's a thing that we can do. but I don't think this will be a very good mini-boss killer. If you guys do want very good mini-boss killers, I put a decent amount of work into a video linked down below that shows you all of the best weapons to use for mini-bosses, and Xenon Bow is not one of them. You see how it's a... oh, I ran out of wafers. Oh no, I did not prepare well enough. But you can see how the Ricochet mini-boss is not killing me. That's embarrassing. Like... That's embarrassing. Yeet Crab, I don't know why I keep saying Z, it's Xenon is in my brain, but Yeet Crab is using the Dirge Song build and dying immediately. I could use a Jabberwocky, which is a significantly stronger weapon and probably better for this use case, but it'll probably end my life very quickly, but help from the teammates has gone a long way. And since I ran out of wafers, I might just have to put the double crit damage copy away. I have shown more from the double crit damage Xenon Bow, link down below. That video is pretty thorough. It is the old Xenon Bow with the wider range. It does have a lot more effectiveness in that video, but it should be the exact same damage. And it looks like I actually did have Toy Rocket Knight active for a second there, so I can at least show 1.6 million, upper end crits, should be over 2 million, I thought, with the team perk active, but without a way to consistently activate that. There we go, 1.8 million. It's not even that much more. And as I mentioned earlier, I do have Boom Base, so this is a little bit of a stronger Xenon Bow than you might see in your lobbies, but it does at least get my point across. So the weapon's not unusable. It's perfectly fine. Of course, this mission is giving me a better perspective, but I've said I should probably redo my tier list video because it went from an S tier bow to, I don't know. I would have put it in B or C tier a while ago because I did use this on stream outside of a YouTube video recently, and it was performing relatively, you know, B tier. But today I got good sleep. I got, you know, advanced CG in my veins. I got caffeinated, and I'm hitting some of my shots. Oh my goodness.
40 chests.
Okay, that's like a $60 value. So Zaku wanted to fund some upcoming videos, and that is never necessary. I'm always willing to make my own videos when I'm not super depressed after a breakup, like I have been this year, and busy with traveling. And I went on like a 3-month break, and I'm not happy about it. But I am always happy to make my own videos. I've always got my own ideas of what I want to post for the channel. But occasionally, a super fan like Zaku, this is not his first time, is willing and interested to fund a topic that I wouldn't normally cover. So stay tuned for some future uploads. He is going to be having me run some wacky loadouts. I will spoil one of them. There is a particular sniper that comes out in the Frost Knight season that has one video from me on the entire channel, and I don't even think it deserved that video. So you guys can probably figure out what that means, and Zaku really wants me to run it amongst some others. So stay tuned for that, and thank you so much, Zaku. But what I'm saying is this mission gave me a better review. I feel like the Xenon Bow was, in my brain, like a C or a B tier weapon. I still think based on its utility, infinite pierce, and, you know, cost effectiveness, it's probably still an A tier weapon or a high B tier weapon, depending on who you ask. It doesn't really matter, though, as most of the anecdotal experience I've had from talking in Discord has had a lot of people recycling the weapon and no longer using it. I've had a lot of people ask me, what should I use now that the Xenon Bow is ruined? Well, Vacuum Tube Bow is pretty nuts, and next season is water only, so have fun with that. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was really fun to record because I've been wanting to check out this weapon since it came out, and here we did it. Thank you, Zaku, for the upcoming videos, and subscribe if you're new. Channel members get early access to my videos if you guys want to get a heads up. My upload frequency is inconsistent lately, so I don't blame you if that's not a good sell, but if you see some upcoming videos that you want to see early, you can do so. Everything goes out for free eventually, though, so it's never necessary to pay me a dime. You can watch for free when they all go live. So that's it. I'm out of here. Goodbye. And then